Starting off with the only church stuff I have to share that we have to share, and that's the upcoming prayer service on Sunday, April 19th at Ridgeline Middle School. Again, this time the meeting is going to be at 4:30 p.m. We want to make sure that you park in the parking lot to the north, the staff parking lot, not the main parking lot to the south of the building, but the staff parking lot to the north. Look, this isn't going to go anywhere. This isn't going to have any lasting fruit without prayer. There are things in your life that aren't going to change without a commitment to prayer. So we're going to go with the goers. We're going to pray with the prayers. Those that want to gather together on a foundation of seeking the Lord God Almighty together. Bring names. Bring names of people that you want to call upon the Lord alongside brothers and sisters in Christ for. Bring things that you have long prayed for, things that have seemed to be stuck in a rut. Bring even just a mustard seed of faith and see what God does with that. Because, of course, it's not about the amount of faith that changes things. It's about who we're placing our faith in, who he is, what he is like, what he desires to do, and how he longs to have his people together draw near to him. So we expect at that prayer service to have some next step launch opportunities to share with you about small groups, the very beginnings of small groups in Harvest Church. Dependence on God and people coming together. Those two aspects, dependence on God and people coming together, that's going to be the soil that this Harvest Church evolves and grows from. All right, Daniel, chapter 6. We're going all the way through chapter 6, just like the professor went all the way through chapter 5 last week. Here with Daniel, you have a new king. You have a third of what will be 4 kings over the lifetime of this man. But you will still have the same old faithful Daniel. And I want to actually put emphasis on that word old. He's aged now. He's been through a life of generations after generations. Again, this is the third era, the third king that he will serve. It used to be Babylon, and now it's into the reign of the Medes and the Persians. And yet you still have the same old faithful Daniel. And that's going to become very evident in what happens in this chapter. It pleased Darius to set over the kingdom 120 satraps, to be throughout the whole kingdom, and over them 3 high officials, whom Daniel was one, to whom the satraps would give an account, so that the king might suffer no loss. This Daniel became distinguished above all the other high officials and satraps because an excellent spirit was in him. And the king planned to set him over the whole kingdom. Then the high officials and the satraps sought to find a ground for complaint against Daniel with regard to the kingdom, but they could find no ground for complaint or any fault because he was faithful, and no error or fault was found in him. When these men said, "We shall not find any ground for complaint against this Daniel unless we find it in connection with the law of his God." Again, generations after generations of faithfulness. I want us to picture this, that over the course of this man's life, we meet him as a youth. We meet him as a young teenager doing radical obedience things. And here we see him as an aged, faithful man. Bold faith, bold obedience, rising in contributions to the Babylonian leadership. That's another point that should fascinate us, that Daniel's contributions of faithfulness rose him in his contributions towards Babylonian and now the Medes and Persians, the leadership. And that made the other Babylonian leaders very jealous. Bold faith, bold obedience, the same kind of resolve that we were first introduced to when Daniel and his 3 companions resolved at the very beginning of the book of Daniel not to defile themselves, but to set themselves apart. Put yourself in a position where your repeated faithfulness against God leads people to only be able, if they're going to attack anything, if they're going to come after anything in your life, it's going to have to be your relentless obedience to God. And watch how God shows up for you. Verse 6. Then these high officials and satraps came by agreement to the king and said to him, O King Darius, live forever. All the high officials and counselors and governors are agreed that the king should establish an ordinance and enforce an injunction that whoever makes petition to any god or man for 30 days, except you, O king, shall be cast into the den of lions. Now, O king, establish the injunction and sign the document so that it cannot be changed according to the law of the Medes and the Persians, which cannot be revoked. Therefore, King Darius signed the document and the injunction. They're buttering him up. We can see that reading this. They're saying, hey, you should make a law, an irrevocable law, that says nobody can make petitions or prayers or seek anything from a god or man except from you for the next month. It's your month, king. Everybody relies on you. When people butter you up like this, it's easy to swallow it. It's easy to take it in. And man, Babylonian kings, the kings of this era, the Medes and the Persians, they eat this stuff up time and time again. A habit of following the crowd. Here's where I want you to take a time out. Maybe even pause this video right now. Make a list or consider for a bit what would happen, what dangers or distractions would result if you followed the counsel of the crowd. I think that could be a very powerful reflection. Meditate on that. That's what we're supposed to do with biblical literature. We're supposed to take it and meditate on it. What would happen? What distractions would follow if I just ate up what the crowd is saying? Let's keep going. Verse 10. When Daniel knew that the document had been signed, I want to stop there. Daniel was aware of the risk. Daniel knew what he was doing here. When Daniel knew that the document had been signed, he went to his house where he had windows in his upper chamber open toward Jerusalem. He got down on his knees 3 times a day and prayed and gave thanks before his God, as he had done previously. Daniel doing faithful things. Then these men came by agreement and found Daniel making petition and plea before his God. And they came near and said before the king concerning the injunction, here we go, O king, did you not sign an injunction that anyone who makes petition to any god or man within 30 days, except you, O king, shall be cast into the den of lions? The king answered and said, the thing stands fast according to the law of Medes and Persians, which cannot be revoked. Then they answered and said before the king, Daniel, who is one of the exiles from Judah, pays no attention to you, O king, or the injunction that you have signed, but makes his petition 3 times a day. Then the king, when he heard these words, was much distressed and set his mind to deliver, to free Daniel. And he labored, he worked at it till the sun went down to rescue him. Then these men came by agreement to the king and said to the king, know, O king, that it is a law of the Medes and Persians that no injunction or ordinance that the king establishes can be changed. Favor of the king, favor of this king, we see that Daniel, even with a new king, this is now the 3rd king, that he rises in prominence. And when this king finds out that it's Daniel that his remarks have hurt, he tries to undo it. And even he is powerless according to his own laws. Hey, this touches on something that's kind of personal for me. One of you recently asked me, in this season of life, with everything that's gone down, what have you learned about yourself? And one of the things after thinking about it for a bit is I said, I got to be careful about making hasty oaths. That's what this is. It's an oath, it's a promise, it's a commitment that is uttered with no regard towards consequences. Now, please hear me. People like bold statements. I'm going to do this kind of commitments. And I may have hopes and dreams that I want to make fierce commitments towards in the future. But one of the things I'm learning in this season of life, kind of the hard way, is be careful about making hasty commitments. Bold commitments, bold resolve, as we've talked about already in this teaching and throughout the book of Daniel, that's good. The question is, what are those oaths and commitments based on? Is it something that God has called me to do? Or something that I'm saying, I will never do this, or I will do this, or we're going to do this by? Be careful about hasty oaths. Be careful about hasty commitments. Sometimes it costs us nothing to give them, and it costs us a lot when they don't come to fruition. And so that's maybe a Mel lesson that I wonder might be helpful to share. Let's finish off this chapter. Then the king commanded, and Daniel was brought and cast into the den of lions. The king declared to Daniel, may your God, whom you serve, continually deliver you, because me, I'm powerless. And a stone was brought and laid on the mouth of the den, and the king sealed it with his own signet and with the signet of his lords, that nothing might be changed concerning Daniel. There's nothing I can do. Then the king went to his palace and spent the night fasting. No diversions were brought to him, and sleep fled from him. Then at daybreak, or break of day, the king arose and went in haste to the den of lions. As he came near to the den where Daniel was, he cried out in a tone of anguish. The king declared to Daniel, O Daniel, servant of the living God, has your God, whom you serve continually, been able to deliver you from the lions? Then Daniel said to the king, O king, live forever. My God sent his angel and shut the lions' mouths, and they have not harmed me, because I was found blameless before him, and also before you, O king. I have done no harm. Then the king was exceedingly glad, and commanded that Daniel be taken up out of the den. So Daniel was taken up out of the den. There's some foreshadow there of being left in a den, left in darkness, with what Jesus ultimately accomplishes, and we celebrate in this Easter season. So Daniel was taken up out of the den, and no kind of harm was found on him, because he had trusted in his God. And the king commanded, and those who had maliciously accused Daniel were brought and cast into the den of lions, they, their children, and their wives. And before they reached the bottom of the den, the lions overpowered them and broke all their bones in pieces. Then King Darius wrote to all peoples, nations, and languages that dwell in the earth, peace be multiplied to you. I make a decree that in all my royal dominion people are to tremble and fear before the God of Daniel. For he is the living God, enduring forever. His kingdom shall never be destroyed, and his dominion shall be to the end. He delivers and rescues. He works signs and wonders in heaven and on earth. He who has saved Daniel from the power of the lions. So this Daniel prospered during the reign of Darius. That'd be the third king that he serves. And the reign of Cyrus the Persian. That'd be the fourth. Daniel lives a good life. Daniel lives a long, thriving, generation after generation, decade after decade, thriving life in Babylon. In Babylon. Taken into captivity as a youth, favor and prominence throughout 3, ultimately 4 eras of kings, dramatic clashes where the Lord showed up in him and through him mightily. Daniel lives a good, thriving life in Babylon. Life might bring us to places we would never want to go. God never promises us that it's always going to be the land of milk and honey, always thriving, always peaceful. Life might bring us into Babylon. And the point here is there is faith there. There is thriving there. Faith in Babylon, the might of the Lord, the pursuit of the lost. All of this is something we see coming to the end of the first half of this book of Daniel. Next week, we're going to dive into apocalyptic literature. Next week, we're going to demonstrate how this is one continual book, not two halves, but here we see faith in Babylon. Faith, power of the Lord, the pursuit of the lost in a place maybe you wish you never had to be. That's Daniel. I want us to reflect on that. I want us to learn from that, and I want us to thrive in light of that.